My best friend framed me for armed robbery and let me take the fall. So after I got out, I spent years quietly digging up evidence until I finally had enough to send him to prison. Now, 7 years later, he's writing letters from his cell, teaching others how to frame innocent people. And one of his new victims just showed up at my door, desperate for help, that a close friend of mine set me up for an armed robbery, shattering my life. So, I exposed him and witnessed his imprisonment. 2 years later, his cousin threatened my friends. 3 fractured ribs and a felony charge. That's what a seemingly ordinary walk home with my supposed best friend cost me. Just 10 minutes. Before everything spiraled, Jake and I were leaving a house party, a routine we'd repeated countless times. I was on the phone with my mother when Jake decided he needed to quickly grab some beer from the convenience store. I nodded, continuing. A few paces ahead, attempting to call my mom. A few minutes later, Jake caught up, slightly out of breath, mentioning the long line and handing me his jacket since I was shivering. We'd walked about 4 blocks when police vehicles surrounded us. They tackled me forcefully, pinning me to the pavement, cuffing me before I could utter a word. I couldn't breathe. They kept yelling about a robbery, a mask, a weapon. None of it made sense. At the precinct, they showed me surveillance images from the gas station video. The masked individual was wearing a jacket remarkably similar to Jake's, only now it was on me. My fingerprints weren't on the register, but they discovered cash stashed in my room. I later learned Jake had hidden it there. He visited me once, saying, I panicked. I didn't think it would go this far. Just do the time. It's juvie, man. You'll be out in no time. I wanted to scream, but I was 17. I had no proof, just a battered body, a public defender, and a judge who declared I needed to be made an example of. I spent 9 months in juvenile detention. Upon my release, the world had moved on. My mom didn't entirely believe my side of the story. My friends stopped contacting me. My record became a constant shadow. I took any work available, cleaning warehouses, loading trucks, anything. Paid under the table. Jake, however, was thriving. He was even dating someone I used to have a crush on in school. I tried to remain indifferent. Then, one night, scrolling through a cousin's Instagram, I saw a picture. It was Jake on the night of the party, wearing the exact jacket he'd given me. Same patch, same tear on the cuff. I checked the timestamp. Same night, same hour. I pulled up the police report, my heart pounding. The times aligned. I spent the next week meticulously tracing everything. Jake's location check-ins, all photos taken and posted on the night of the robbery. Then I recalled the hardware store across from that gas station. I went inside, explaining I was looking for footage for a school project, and asked if they kept old camera archives. The owner handed me a dusty USB drive, mentioning their father was a hoarder and refused to discard anything, even security footage, so they rarely deleted it. The footage didn't show the robbery itself, but it captured someone matching Jake's build, wearing that precise jacket, entering the gas station right when the crime occurred, and me standing outside on the phone. I sent it to my former public defender. She didn't reply, so I reached out to a local legal clinic assisting with wrongful convictions. A volunteer attorney, Matt, met with me. He believed my account, stating, this might qualify for a review. Then things worsened. Jake discovered my efforts. He appeared outside the warehouse where I worked, pulled me aside, and hissed, why are you digging this up? You're going to ruin my life again. I discreetly pulled out my phone and began recording. He didn't notice. He continued, you already took a fall. Let it go. You think anyone's going to believe you now? You're a felon. I'm a manager. That night, I posted a photo of the jacket and the timestamps, adding no other words. Just still. Think I wore this. Jake panicked. He went into a school alumni group and falsely claimed I was stalking and harassing him, asserting I was obsessed. People began taking sides. I remained silent until I released the complete audio recording. The legal team took over. They filed to have the case reopened. Jake was subpoenaed. Under pressure, he became careless. In a last-ditch meeting, he confronted Matt, unaware Matt was also recording. He blurted, even if I did it, they already locked him up. What more do you want? That was it. The footage, the photo, the recording, it all connected. The judge overturned my conviction. My record was cleared. Jake was charged with obstruction and robbery. He broke down when they cuffed him, claiming it was a mistake, that he was just a kid, that he didn't intend for it to go this far. I said, nothing. The community started reaching out, former teachers, coworkers, even my mother cried when the news broke. But I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt drained. That night, I received a message from an unfamiliar sender. You don't know me, but I think your friend did the same thing to my brother last year. Want to talk? I stared at the screen, then typed, yeah, I do. The message was from a young woman named Teresa, who lived about 2 hours away. Her brother, Anthony, was serving 18 months for a pharmacy break-in. She said the details were eerily similar to ignore. I called her that night. She answered on the first ring, her voice shaky but resolute. She explained that Anthony had been spending time with Jake the summer before my arrest. They'd met at a basketball camp. One night, Jake persuaded Anthony to accompany him while he picked something up from the pharmacy. Jake went in alone. Anthony waited in the car. The next thing Anthony knew, alarms were blaring, and Jake was sprinting back. He tossed a bag into the back seat and told Anthony to drive. Anthony panicked and drove. They were pulled over 3 blocks away. The bag contained prescription pills and cash. Jake told the police it was all Anthony's idea, that Anthony had coerced him into coming along. Anthony had a prior shoplifting charge from when he was 14. The police believed Jake. Anthony was charged. Jake walked free. I felt nauseous, listening to her. The pattern was unmistakably clear. Jake targeting vulnerable friends, setting them up, and then escaping unscathed. Teresa had been attempting to help her brother appeal, but no one would listen. She'd seen my story on social media when it exploded. She knew I'd understand. We talked for 3 hours that night. She had some evidence, but not quite enough. Anthony recalled Jake wearing gloves that night, remembered him knowing exactly where the cameras were, but it was all circumstantial. I assured her I'd assist in any way I could. The following day, I started delving into Jake's past. I contacted people from his old schools, his previous jobs. Most were unwilling to speak, but a few did. There was William, from Jake's freshman year. He'd been expelled for stealing from the school store. He swore Jake was with him, but Jake testified otherwise. There was Diana, who worked with Jake at a restaurant. Money vanished from the register during her shift. She was fired. Jake was promoted. The stories kept emerging, minor incidents, major ones, always the same pattern. Jake would befriend someone, get close, then when something went awry, they'd take the blame. I began meticulously documenting everything, creating timelines, identifying connections. Teresa was doing the same on her end. We'd exchange updates via text throughout the day, comparing notes at night. Then Jake's mother called me. I nearly didn't answer, but curiosity prevailed. She was weeping, saying Jake was crumbling, that he needed help, that perhaps I could talk to him. I told her I couldn't do that. She pleaded, saying he'd been having nightmares, that he kept talking about rectifying things. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Jake texted me, stating he wanted to meet to explain everything, to apologize properly. I screenshotted the message and sent it to Teresa. She called immediately, advising me not to go alone, that it could be a trap. But I was curious and angry, and perhaps a little foolish. I agreed to meet him at a downtown coffee shop, a public place with many witnesses. I arrived early, securing my phone in my jacket pocket, testing the audio, ensuring the battery was full. Teresa parked where she had a clear view. William and Diana waited by the playground, everyone checking in via text. Everyone was prepared. Judy arrived promptly, sitting on a bench near the duck pond, appearing nervous but resolved. She had rehearsed what she was going to say. We'd gone over it a dozen times. Jake showed up 5 minutes later, sitting down but maintaining a distance between them. He immediately began speaking, expressing gladness that she'd reached out, that he'd been contemplating the past, about making amends. His voice held that familiar, deceptive sincerity. Judy played her part perfectly, explaining she'd been struggling since college, that losing her scholarship had devastated her life, that she simply wanted to comprehend why it happened. Jake started spinning his usual narrative about misunderstandings, about being young, about everyone making mistakes. He was skilled, smooth, almost convincing if you didn't know better. Then Judy pressed him, directly asking if he had placed those answer keys in her bag. His entire demeanor shifted. He became defensive, claiming she was trying to ensnare him, that this was some kind of setup. He stood up to leave, glancing around suspiciously. That's when I stepped out, phone clearly visible, recording everything. Jake's face went ashen. He looked around, saw Teresa approaching, William and Diana walking over, and realized he was surrounded. Not physically. We maintained our distance, but he knew we were all there, all bearing witness, all recording. He tried to run. I followed, not truly chasing, just walking, keeping him in sight. He rounded a corner and ran directly into 2 more people from our group. Word had spread. People had come on their own, wanting to see him face the consequences, wanting to see him squirm the way he'd made them squirm. Jake ended up back at the bench, encircled by 8 people he'd wronged, all recording, all waiting. He broke down, but not in a remorseful way, in an enraged way. He started ranting about how we were all failures, how we deserved what happened, how he was smarter than all of us. His facade completely gone now, the true Jake finally revealing himself. Then, he uttered the words we needed. Yeah, I set you all up. So what? You think anyone cares? You think this matters? I'll just deny it later. Say you all ganged up on me. Edited the videos. Who's going to believe a bunch of criminals? He was practically spitting the words. Years of a superiority complex. Finally boiling over. That's when someone new spoke up. A woman I didn't recognize. She introduced herself as Joyce, stating she was a social worker, had been following our story online, and came to see for herself. She'd recorded everything too, from a different angle, with clear audio, a professional, unbiased, credible witness. Jake realized his error, attempting to backtrack, claiming he was just angry, being sarcastic, but it was too late. We had him on multiple recordings, from various angles, admitting to everything. His words were clear, undeniable. There was no way to explain it away. He departed quickly after that, practically running to his car. We all stood there for a moment, not really celebrating, just processing. We had done it. We had proof. Real proof. The kind that would hold up. The kind that couldn't be dismissed. That night, our group chat was buzzing. Everyone sharing their recordings, comparing angles, ensuring we had everything backed up, multiple copies, cloud storage, physical drives. Joyce offered to help us organize everything, make it presentable. She knew people who could help, lawyers, advocates, media, contacts. But Jake wasn't finished. The next morning, Judy's car windshield was shattered. Teresa's mother received more threatening calls. William found his social media hacked, nasty messages sent to his contacts. Jake was retaliating, trying to intimidate us into silence. Desperate now, and dangerous. I was at work when my supervisor called me in again. He mentioned receiving more calls, this time claiming I was dangerous, that I'd threatened people, that I had a history of violence. He said he didn't believe it, but corporate was asking questions. My job was now at risk. Years of rebuilding my life potentially undone by more lies. That afternoon, Anthony called Teresa again. The threats in prison had escalated. Someone had pushed him downstairs, saying next time would be worse. Teresa was crying on the phone, saying, maybe we should stop, that it wasn't worth her brother getting hurt. I could hear her mother in the background, equally distraught. But then, something unexpected happened. Other inmates started protecting Anthony. It turned out some of them had been following our story too, had their own experiences with people like Jake. They formed a kind of protective circle around Anthony. The threats ceased. Even in prison, truth and solidarity mattered. Meanwhile, Jake was spiraling. His social media became unhinged, constantly posting about being persecuted, about conspiracy theories, about everyone being out to get him. His friends began to distance themselves. His job started asking questions. The carefully constructed image was crumbling. We decided to release everything at once. All the recordings, all the evidence, all the stories. We created a simple website, arranged everything in chronological order, made it undeniable, then shared it everywhere. Social media, local news, community boards, anywhere people would listen. The response was immediate. Local news picked it up, not big national coverage, but enough. People started sharing their own stories about Jake, things we didn't even know about. The pattern went deeper than we'd imagined. Elementary school, summer camps, sports teams, everywhere he'd been, he'd left victims. Jake attempted damage control, hired a lawyer, sent cease and desist letters. But we'd been careful. Everything we shared was true, documented, verified. His lawyer dropped him after reviewing the evidence. Even legal professionals wouldn't touch this mess. Then the real consequences began. Jake's job fired him. His apartment complex evicted him after multiple complaints. His friends completely cut him off. Even his mother stopped defending him publicly. The isolation he'd inflicted on others finally reached him. But we weren't satisfied with just social repercussions. We wanted true justice. For Anthony, especially, still incarcerated for something he didn't do. Joyce connected us with superior lawyers, individuals who specialized in wrongful convictions, people who understood the system. They reviewed Anthony's case and said that with our new evidence, they could file for immediate release, perhaps even get the conviction overturned entirely. It would require time, but they were optimistic. For the first time in years, Teresa harbored genuine hope. Jake made one last desperate move. He appeared at Teresa's house. Her mother was home alone. He forced his way inside, demanding Teresa call everything off. He said he'd make things right if we just stopped. His desperation was palpable, dangerous. Teresa's mother was formidable, though. She grabbed a baseball bat and told him to leave. When he refused, she called 911. She reported an intruder. Jake fled before police arrived, but it was sufficient. They issued a warrant for his arrest, breaking and entering, criminal trespass, intimidation. They apprehended him 2 days later, charged with breaking and entering, intimidation, harassment. His bail was set high. His mother couldn't afford it. He sat in county jail awaiting trial, finally experiencing the system from the opposite side. That's when more people started coming forward. Individuals we hadn't even discovered, all with similar stories, all willing to testify. The prosecutor began building additional cases. The robbery that landed me in prison, the pharmacy break-in, others we were unaware of. Years of crimes were finally being connected. Our group became a support network. We'd meet online every week, share updates, offer encouragement, help each other heal. It wasn't solely about Jake anymore. It was about rebuilding our lives, about healing, about preventing this from happening to others. Judy returned to school, earned her degree. Diana started her own business. William became an advocate for juvenile justice reform. Everyone found their own path forward, reclaiming the futures that had been stolen. Anthony's case progressed faster than anticipated. The new evidence was overwhelming. Combined with Jake's other charges, the prosecutor agreed to expedite the review. Within 2 months, Anthony was released. Time served. Conviction overturned. Record cleared. Teresa sent me a video of him walking out. She was crying. Her mother was crying. Anthony just looked stunned, as if he couldn't believe it was real. They embraced for a long time, years of separation finally ending. We all met in person for the first time at a restaurant. Anthony was there, finally free. He was quiet initially, institutionalized. But as the evening progressed, he opened up, thanking everyone, saying he'd given up hope until we came along. He said knowing people believed him kept him going. Jake's trial began soon after. Multiple charges across multiple jurisdictions. He attempted to plead bargain, admit to lesser charges, but prosecutors sought maximum sentences. They wanted to make an example, which sounded familiar, except this time it was genuinely deserved. I testified at the main trial. So did Judy, Diana, William, Anthony, Teresa. One by one, we recounted our stories, presented our evidence, making it clear this wasn't isolated. This was a pattern, a decade of deliberate harm. The jury listened intently. Some shook their heads. Some looked angry. Jake's lawyer tried to portray him as troubled, needing help, not punishment. But the evidence was too compelling. The pattern too distinct. The harm too profound. The jury didn't buy it. They saw through the act, just as we finally had. Guilty on all counts. Sentenced to 15 years total across all cases. Eligible for parole in 7. Jake wept when they read the verdict. He begged for mercy, claiming he was sorry, genuinely. Sorry this time. But sorry for being caught, not for what he'd done. I felt nothing watching them lead him away. No satisfaction. No closure. Just emptiness. All those years I'd lost. All the pain. For what? So he could feel powerful, clever, superior? The sheer waste of it all was staggering. After the trial, we all went our separate ways. We mostly kept in touch online, but less frequently. Everyone focused on moving forward, building the lives that had been interrupted, making up for lost time, healing. I secured a better job, started taking night classes, slowly rebuilt relationships with family. I even started dating someone, Kelly. I met them at a coffee shop. They knew my story. They didn't care. They said everyone deserves second chances, that the past doesn't define us. Teresa is doing well too. She's studying law now, aspiring to help other wrongfully convicted individuals. She says our experience opened her eyes to how flawed the system is, how easy it is to shatter someone's life, how difficult it is to rebuild. Anthony struggled at first. Prison changes you. But he's receiving help, therapy, support groups. He has a job now, a girlfriend. Still has rough days, but more good ones. He sent me a thank you card last Christmas. It simply said, "Thank you for believing." It made me cry. Sometimes I think about Jake. I wonder if he's changed. If prison is teaching him what it taught me, or if he's just planning his next move. Finding new targets, new victims. I hope it's the former, but I prepare for the latter. I remain vigilant, because that's the nature of people like Jake. They're everywhere, in schools, workplaces, friendships, seeking vulnerabilities, trust, opportunities. And most of them are never apprehended, never face consequences, simply leaving a trail of ruined lives and moving on to the next target. But occasionally, they are caught. Sometimes, the truth emerges. Sometimes, justice actually prevails. It's uncommon. It's arduous. It demands everything you possess. But it's attainable. It requires people willing to speak up, to support each other, to keep pushing even when hope seems lost. That's why I'm sharing this story. Not for pity, not for vengeance, but so perhaps someone else will recognize the pattern, identify the warning signs, and stand up before it's too late, before years are lost, lives are destroyed, futures are stolen. And if you're reading this, and you've been framed, set up, betrayed, know that you are not alone. That truth has a way of surfacing. That people will eventually believe you, even if it takes years, even if it seems hopeless. Even if the whole world seems against you. Document everything. Find others. Build your case. Don't give up. Because somewhere out there are people who will believe you, who will help, who will stand with you. You just have to keep going until you find them. The subsequent few months were quiet, too quiet. Jake was serving his sentence, and most of us were attempting to move forward. I'd started seeing Kelly more regularly. We'd grab dinner after my night classes, nothing elaborate, just takeout and conversation. They made me laugh, made me forget everything for a while. Then Teresa called me one afternoon. Her voice was different, anxious. She said Jake's cousin, Wayne, had been contacting people, asking questions about the case, about our evidence, about where we lived now. He'd even shown up at Judy's workplace, just standing outside watching. I told her it was probably nothing, just curious family members, but she wasn't convinced. She said Anthony had noticed someone following him home from work, the same car 3 days in a row. We decided to be cautious, stay alert, not panic, but not ignore it either. A week later, I arrived home to find my apartment door slightly ajar. Nothing was missing, nothing moved, just open, as if someone wanted me to know they'd been there. I called the landlord. He confirmed maintenance hadn't been by, and no one had access. I changed the locks again, installed more cameras. Judy texted our group that night. Someone had called her job pretending to be a reference checker, asking odd questions about her mental state, her reliability, if she had a history of fabricating stories. Her boss found it peculiar and informed her the number was untraceable. We realized Jake might be orchestrating things from within, using family, friends, people who still adhered to his narrative. Teresa started documenting everything again. We all did. The old paranoia crept back, the constant looking over shoulders, the jumping at shadows. Then Diana uncovered something interesting. Jake had been writing letters, many of them. She knew someone who worked in the prison mailroom. They mentioned Jake was corresponding with at least 12 people, all young men, all in similar circumstances, all seeking guidance. We obtained copies of some letters through proper legal channels. Our lawyers filed requests, citing ongoing harassment concerns. Jake was positioning himself as a sort of mentor, teaching people his methods, his strategies, how to identify marks, how to set them up, how to escape clean. He was cultivating disciples, spreading his venom. I felt sick reading them. He also wrote about us, calling us jealous failures, claiming we'd conspired against him, that he was the true victim. He was rewriting history, constructing a narrative where he was the hero and we were the villains. Teresa wanted to do something, stop him somehow. But our lawyer stated that writing letters wasn't illegal. Even instructing people to commit crimes was protected as free speech until they actually carried out the act. We were stuck, watching him build a network from behind bars. Then one of the recipients reached out to me, a kid named Arthur, 19 years old. He said he'd been writing Jake for advice about dealing with bullies. Jake had told him to frame them for theft, get them expelled, ruin their lives before they could ruin his. Arthur was intelligent, though. He Googled Jake's name, found our website, read everything, and realized he was being groomed, manipulated, molded into the next Jake. He sent me all their correspondence. He wanted to help put a stop to this. We added Arthur's letters to our collection and started reaching out to the other people Jake was writing, warning them, showing them the truth. Some listened, some didn't. Some were already too deeply entangled in his web. One of them, a guy named Joe, had already begun employing Jake's techniques. He set up his roommate for substance possession, got him expelled from college, and bragged about it in his letters to Jake. We tried to assist the roommate, but without proof, there was nothing to be done. This was the issue. Jake had found a way to continue his damage from prison, creating many versions of himself, teaching others to destroy lives. We had stopped him, but not his influence, not his legacy of harm. I met with our lawyer again, asking if there was anything we could do. She replied, unless Jake explicitly instructed someone to commit a specific crime, it was just talk, just ideas, protected speech. The system that had failed us before was failing us again. But then Wayne made a misstep. He directly approached Anthony, offering him money to retract his testimony. He claimed Jake could make his life easier inside. If Anthony simply said he'd lied, that we'd all lied, that we'd forced him to participate. Anthony recorded everything. Wayne admitted Jake had sent him, that there was a plan to discredit all of us, to get Jake's convictions overturned on appeal, to sue us for defamation, to shatter our lives all over again. We took the recording to prosecutors. Witness tampering, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, real charges with real consequences. They arrested Wayne 2 days later. He folded immediately, revealing everything, including proof that Jake was directing operations from inside. The prison finally took action, moved Jake to solitary, restricted his communications, monitored his calls, severed his ability to manipulate from within. His network crumbled without his constant guidance. The letters stopped. The harassment ended. But the damage was done. Joe's roommate had dropped out. Another kid named Jonathan had been expelled after being framed. 2 more lives derailed. Jake's influence spread like a virus, even from behind bars. We decided to expand our website, adding a section about recognizing manipulation, warning signs, red flags, resources for victims. Kelly helped with the design, making it user-friendly, easy to find on search engines. The site garnered thousands of visits. People shared their own stories, not just about Jake, but about their own Jakes, the manipulators in their lives, the ones who'd set them up, used them, discarded them. It evolved into a community, a support network. Local schools began inviting us to speak, share our story, teach kids about manipulation, about protecting themselves, about speaking up. Judy was incredible at it. She transformed her pain into purpose, helping kids recognize the patterns before they became victims. I was nervous the first time I spoke, standing in front of 100 high school students, recounting the worst night of my life. But then I saw their faces, some nodding, some crying, some recognizing their own experiences. It mattered. It helped. One girl approached me afterward. She said her friend was doing similar things, setting people up, getting them into trouble, playing the victim. She didn't know what to do. We talked for an hour, gave her resources, told her to document everything, to find others who'd been harmed, to speak up together. A month later, she emailed me. They'd exposed her friend, gotten them help, stopped the pattern before it destroyed more lives. She thanked me, saying our story gave her courage, made her realize she wasn't crazy, wasn't alone. This became our new normal. Speaking, teaching, preventing, taking our trauma and transforming it into something useful, something that could prevent others from enduring what we did. It wasn't exactly healing, but it was purpose. Jake attempted one more appeal, claiming ineffective counsel, saying his lawyer hadn't properly defended him. The appeal was denied. The evidence was too overwhelming. His own words too damning. He was stuck serving his full sentence. No early release. No parole. I went to see him once. I don't know why. Curiosity, perhaps, or closure. He looked smaller in prison orange. Older. The confidence gone. The swagger disappeared. Just another inmate now. Another number in the system. He tried to manipulate even then. Said he'd found religion. That he was changed. That he wanted to make amends. Apologize properly. I just stared at him, said nothing. Let him speak. Watched him perform. Saw through every lie. When he finished, I stood up. I told him I forgave him. Not for his sake, for mine. Because carrying that anger was exhausting. Because I had better things to do with my energy. Because I had won. I had rebuilt. I had survived. He looked shocked, then angry, then desperate. He started saying I owed him. That without him, I'd never have become who I was. That he'd made me stronger. That I should be grateful. The same old manipulation. The same old games. I left without responding. Never went back. Never thought about him much after that. He'd taken enough of my time, my energy, my life. I was done giving him space in my mind. Done letting him matter. The website continued to expand, becoming a resource, an early warning system. People would post about potential manipulators. Others would confirm patterns, share experiences. We'd inadvertently created an early warning system, a network of survivors protecting future victims. Kelly and I moved in together. A small apartment, but it was ours, filled with plants. They insisted on buying books. I collected photos of happy times. New memories replacing old trauma. Building something healthy, something real. Teresa graduated law school, passed the bar, and started working with wrongful conviction cases. She said she'd never forget what we went through, what Anthony suffered. She's helped free 3 people so far. 3 lives saved, 3 futures restored. Anthony is doing better too. He has his own place now, a steady job. Still goes to therapy, but less often. He sent me a photo last week, him and his girlfriend. At the beach, smiling, free, living the life that was almost stolen. Judy teaches full-time now, high school psychology. She incorporates her experience into every lesson, teaching kids about healthy relationships, about red flags, about trusting their instincts. Her students adore her, calling her real, authentic, someone who understands. Diana's business is flourishing. She hired 2 employees, both people who'd experienced similar situations, giving them opportunities others wouldn't, building something positive from something negative, creating opportunities where there were none. William works with at-risk youth, counseling, mentoring, showing them better paths. He says, seeing kids avoid Jake's influence makes everything worthwhile. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every scar. Even Joyce remained involved. The social worker who'd witnessed Jake's confession. She helped create a training program teaching social workers to recognize manipulation, to protect vulnerable kids, to stop patterns before they become tragedies. We still meet sometimes, not as often, not as urgently, just friends now, bonded by shared trauma but not defined by it. We laugh more than we cry. We talk about futures more than pasts. We celebrate victories more than we mourn losses. Last week marked 5 years since my arrest. The night that changed everything. I didn't even remember until Teresa texted me. Time had dulled the anniversary, making it just another day. That felt like victory too. I'm writing this from my new office. Yes, I have an office now. Working in IT security. Turns out being meticulous about documentation makes you skilled at data protection. Who knew trauma could become job skills? Kelly just brought me coffee, kissed my forehead, reminded me we have dinner plans. Normal stuff. Regular life. The kind I thought I'd never have. The kind Jake tried to steal. The kind I fought to reclaim. Sometimes new people reach out, find our website, share their stories, ask for assistance. We respond when we can, direct them to resources, connect them with others, keep the network growing, keep the support flowing. Because that's the thing about surviving something like this. You want to help others survive too. You want to spare them the pain, the lost years, the shattered faith. You want to be the person you needed when you were drowning. Jake gets out in 2 years. We know. We're ready. The network is stronger now, the documentation better, the support system solid. He'll find a very different world than the one he left. One where his tricks are known, his patterns recognized, his power diminished. But that's a future concern. Today, I have code to write, Kelly to love, friends to meet, a life to live. A real life, built on truth, sustained by connection, protected by wisdom earned the hard way. Sometimes I drive past that gas station, the one where it all began. It's a coffee shop now. Gentrification, or whatever. I stop sometimes, get a latte. Sit where I was arrested. Think about how far I've come, how much I've survived, how much I've built. Then I finish my coffee, get back in my car, drive home to my life, my real life. The one I chose, the one I earned, the one nobody can take away. Because I have the receipts, the evidence, the truth, and an army of survivors who have my back. That's my story. Our story. Still being written, still unfolding, but the hardest chapters are behind us. The antagonist defeated. The victims triumphant. The pattern broken. The future ours to author. Thanks for reading. Share if it helps. Reach out if you need to. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find your people. Fight back. Survive. Thrive. Win. And remember, they're out there, the Jakes of the world. But so are we. The survivors, the fighters, the ones who see through. The falsehoods, who stand up, who speak out, who refuse to be victims, who refuse to let them prevail. We're everywhere now, watching, warning, waiting, ready. They should be afraid.